I'm sixth-generation Texan. I was born bold, brave, and brash. I had my first head injury at the age of 2, getting bucked off an albino mule named TJ. I learned to drive a car when most children are still in a car seat, and had my first car wreck at 12. I learned how to skin a rattlesnake, cook it, and hold it by 3 fingers and milk the venom out. I was raised on a working cattle ranch. My dad was the quintessential Marlboro man. Hat, boots, Wranglers, and a big dose of toxic masculinity. My mom was a former rodeo queen and was brave and bold in her own way. She was the first farm and ranch editor, a female farm and ranch editor of the Abilene Reporter News, and then later went on to have her own rodeo newspaper. It wouldn't be until years later that she would lose her courage, her bravery, her boldness. Years of chronic illness and abusive relationships did that to her. In our house, we weren't allowed to be afraid of traditional fears. We were tough. We were rugged. We had that true Texas grit. The whole pull yourself up by the bootstraps kind of family. Never let anybody see you cry. Don't ask for help. And help people that are weaker than you. This was my religion, as much as evangelical Christianity. And well, it served me until I was about 14 years old. And that's when there was this fear and sense of shame that I had never known before. A fear and a sense of shame so deep and so dark that I couldn't even speak it. In our Southern Baptist household, sex was a sin. Hell, dancing was a sin. When my mother had the talk with me, she said, "Laramie, sex is a bestial, animalistic thing, and it should only be endured during marriage." That provides a little bit of insight into her kind of relationship. So I kept my PG fantasies about our stable boy to myself and never, ever dared touch myself. And it was all right until I was about 14 years old. And then I started having dreams. Dreams about kissing my girlfriends. I was so disturbed and so ashamed at this that I would wake up in the middle of the night with a panic attack. I would wake up after one of these dreams in cold sweats, and I'd run to the bathroom and throw up. I didn't tell anybody about this for over a decade. Because, see, in my Southern Baptist household, not only was homosexuality a sin, you were on the same level as somebody that would hurt children. So I learned to suppress it, to push it down. I got good at this suppression. And now fast forward to college, and I had a serious boyfriend, Steven. Steven was an asshole. His roommates in college used to call me Fort Knox because I made him wait so long before I'd have sex with him. He was a jerk. But I rationalized having premarital sex with Steven because I thought I loved him. And I told myself, well, it's not really a sin because we're going to get married someday. Never mind that the relationship was toxic. He was jealous. We fought all the time. And he told me once that he would be more proud of me if I was in Playboy than if I got my PhD. Yeah, Steven was a jerk. But at the same time, I started taking anthropology classes and sociology and gender studies. I started doing the Vagina Monologues. And even though I was still in the heart of the Bible Belt, I was beginning to have a little bit broader perspective on life. And so now, it's 2003, the year after I've graduated from college, and I am about to have my first internship on a monkey island. The island on Puerto Rico called Cayo Santiago, the monkey island. Isla de Monos. This was a big step. I had never left the country before. And And I was just getting over a pretty traumatic breakup with Steven, the asshole. Traumatic in that, well, at a party at his house, a woman threw a drink in my face. You know, a cup of trash can punch right in my face. Called me a bitch and then ran off. Before I could go after her and talk calmly, of course, she yells out, "I'm pregnant with this child and nobody cares." As you can imagine, that was the nail in the coffin of our toxic relationship. Done. So now, less than a week later, I'm in a totally foreign place. I'm in Puerto Rico, on the Monkey Island, with people who are different from me, people who don't know me. This was the first time in my life where there were no expectations. Nobody there with this preconceived notion of who I am or who I should be. It was terrifying and freeing at the same time. I had been around queer people before, but never in a place where they felt so free and bold and unabashed and unafraid to be themselves, their true selves. It was exciting. There was Eric, who was from Canada. He was a little neurotic. In fact, he was actually really afraid of these monkeys. In fact, when he was supposed to be doing research like the rest of us, carrying around his clipboard, doing monkey behavioral observations, he would run off, hide behind a tree, and smoke cigarette after cigarette, hoping that the monkeys didn't come and steal the cigarettes, or even worse, the lighters. Eric decided that the Monkey Island was not for him. And even though it was only a week had passed, he left to have adventures all across Puerto Rico. We stayed in touch, and I was thrilled to hear that Eric not only came out as gay, but then identified as trans. This was the first trans person I had ever met. And they had the boldness, the braveness to be their true selves. And Eric transitioned to Erica, and I was so proud of her. And then there was Meg, the very militant lesbian who sold her eggs in college and spent $20,000 of that egg money traveling around the country following Anita Franco. Eggs money for eggs. I didn't know you could do that. And so here was Meg, who had shaved off her beautiful golden locks to show us what a really serious lesbian she was. And then there was Nairi. Nairi was Puerto Rican. She had piercings and tattoos. She was in a punk band. Nairi was pretty much the coolest person I ever met. She didn't even shave her armpits or her legs. I had a crush on Nairi, maybe even a little infatuation. And this was the first time I didn't hate myself because of it. So I had this infatuation with Nairi. And every day, after several hours of chasing these monkeys around on this monkey island with our clipboards, doing behavioral observations, we would meet in the lunch cage. And yes, it was a lunch cage because we had to be fully enclosed or the monkeys would steal our food and probably attack us. So in the lunch cage, people would share a little bit of their sandwich or their selves and about their lives outside of the island. And everything was going well until the hurricane. So there was a hurricane. We're on an island. The waves were so tall and there was so much damage that we could not take the boats back to the island for about a week. The monkeys were fine. They had trees with leaves, and there were even a few fruit trees. The ones that were not fine were the rats. Rats are my sworn enemy, my nemesis, the only creature on God's green earth, if there is a God, that scare me. They scare the hell out of me. And here they were coming out in the hundreds, in the thousands, because the rats relied on the monkey chow. They were no longer afraid of people because they associated people with food. So here I am, a week after the hurricane, with my clipboard, and here they come. They're coming closer and closer. Those sons of bitches had no fear. They would walk right over your boot. Not on this cowgirl's watch. And so I had my clipboard, and I would yell at them. I would say, "Hya, hya, hya," kind of like you would cattle. It did not faze these son of a bitches. And in fact, there was this one with particularly beady eyes and this mangy fur and those giant testicles. Why do they have such giant testicles? It's because of sperm competition, but that's another story. These giant testicles that are dragging the ground, and it's coming closer and closer and closer to me. So I drop the clipboard, I pick up a rock, I yell, "Hya, hya!" Again, it's still there. I drop the rock. It hits the rat. Whack! Ugh. It's still alive. And it's writhing in pain. And as much as I hate those sons of bitches that caused the plague, I don't want to hurt animals. And I would never, ever want to see an animal suffer. What do I do? Nobody's going to help me. So I pick up another rock. I held the rock above my head. Whack! And this time I dealt the death blow. It was gross. I felt sick. I wanted to throw up. But I wasn't quite so afraid of rats anymore. There was something about that summer, something about the island, something about the people that I met that allowed me a sense of freedom and permission to explore. I even learned to masturbate. And it was okay that I had this huge crush on Nairi. I may not have had the courage to tell her how I felt, but it was a really important first step. A really important first step in acknowledging who I am, my true authentic self, part of my identity and my sexuality that I had been suppressing for so long. And so now, over 20 years later, I can stand up here and say I'm a true, proud bisexual. Yes, we really do exist. In captivity and also in the wild.